Today's talk is called What You Can Do When Progress Grinds to a Halt. And as always, I have a few quotes to begin with. First, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford. Then the next two are by Dr. Ernest Holmes. Act as though I am and I will be. And the last one, the universe exists by its own self-pronouncement, by its own affirmation. It only knows I am. It knows nothing else. So I woke up yesterday morning in quite a state, feeling really down on myself. I didn't remember any of my dreams, but all the thoughts that were coming through my head were beating myself up about not being good enough, about feeling like I hadn't grown, feeling like I hadn't accomplished anything. And I was feeling so bad. And so one of the first things I did was go to my lovely wife, Ash, who was sick. She was down with a fever and not feeling very well herself. And because I wasn't in a very good state, I didn't ask her in a very good way what it was I needed. And so her response was not one that actually was uplifting to me, which isn't her fault because she was in a really bad way herself physically. And so I got into a very deep place of self-loathing until I realized that her response was an exact mirror of how I was feeling about myself. Now notice whether this is true for you or not, that when you feel the most down on yourself, those around you respond in a way that actually proves you right. Makes you feel like you're right about not having self-worth and those things. Now, a lot of times I go to my wife and she is so incredibly supportive. But at those times, she centered herself, which was not the case when she's feeling sick. And many times when we're triggered, the people we love the most are triggered by our triggering. And so then they're triggered. And so things can snowball and get worse because we are generating our lives. Now, that's the point I want to make here. That we are the ones that are generating what is happening out here. I have an incredibly loving, supportive wife who at times is triggered when I am triggered. Particularly if she's off her game, like when she's really sick. And so if you have people that are like that in your lives, they're not the ones to go to unless you're sure that they are really centered. The place to begin is within, in recognizing that we are the ones who are generating this mirror of us feeling bad about ourselves. How many times have you gone looking for support from somebody and not said it well? Actually, we're already sure you weren't going to get it before you even asked. And that's how I was. Sure, I wasn't going to get it before I even asked, so of course I mirrored that back to me because I was feeling so bad about myself. The good news is I recognized that I was generating this. I was generating what was happening here. And because of that, I could do something about it. When I was a kid, a little over the age of 12, I started traveling the subway. And in that first year, I was mugged almost 20 times. And everybody I spoke to about it was telling me it was because I was small for my age as well as very young. And so I was making myself a target. Now, the word that stuck with me at that moment was target. And I realized that it was up to me to not be a target anymore. And so I started looking at the people who the gangs who traveled the subway passed by as they were always coming to me, how they stood, what was their posturing, how were they being. And I started being like that, started seeing myself as somebody not as a target, but as a strong, powerful person who was invisible enough to be passed by. And sure enough, they did start passing me by. And shortly after the age of 13, where I had not really grown any taller or any bigger, I stopped being mugged. The gangs just passed me by. And I recognized that I had done that internally by taking responsibility and not placing blame on anything else. Now, let me be clear about this. When we resent anybody else, then we are placing blame. If we are placing blame on anybody else or blame on ourselves, there is no power there. The power is when we are willing to be responsible, even when it is somebody else's fault. Now, in this case with my wife this morning, it was certainly not her fault. It was such a clear case of me generating my personal experience. But I have had other experiences in life where I did feel the other person was at fault and resented them for it. And I had all the evidence in the world that it really was them. But when I did that, when I came from that place of proof that it was them, then I had no power to create change. And neither do you. And that's the real key here. The only place where there is power to create change is when we take responsibility, whether it looks like we can or not. Maybe somebody really is at fault. It doesn't matter. What matters is our ability to create change, to generate the life of our dreams. This is a very important concept to understand. The only container that creates something new is the one of responsibility. No other container can do that. Only the one of responsibility. That's where the power is. Now, this is a very simple concept, but not easy. Like so many concepts, simple, but not easy. Once I realized I had the power to stop being a victim, and I stopped being a target. I took responsibility for my change in the whole thing, and thus stopped being a target. And that's what I did yesterday as well. Now, I want to speak to something else. So I recognized this thing at 13, this power from within, and then I forgot about it. And then at other times in my life, I remembered that I can generate from within my life, and then I forget about it. And maybe you have the same experience, because it takes that spiritual practice of constantly reminding ourselves, not beating ourselves up, but reminding ourselves, not blaming ourselves, but reminding ourselves that we are responsible for our experience. And when we're not responsible, we're not generating. Or what it is we're generating is unconscious and more of what it is we don't want. You can't generate something you want from a place that is not fully 100% responsible. And that's what I did yesterday. I went out and realized I needed, so my thing for this whole year has been to constantly ask myself the question, what can I do right now in this moment to love myself? What can I do right now? I'm not feeling good about myself. What can I do right now to love myself? So I started out by doing something Gay and Katie showed us, which was imagine a pool of love, like a pool of water, and then take it and pour it on yourself. And that's what I did. I just started pouring this love on myself, and it helped. I felt a little silly doing it, but it actually helped. Pouring this on myself, and I started feeling a little bit better. And then I took myself out to lunch. And that helped me even feel a little bit better. And then I went and met with my mentor, and that made me feel even better. He was a great support and the perfect person to go to at this time when my wife was not up to par to be the support that she normally is. This stuff works. Spiritual practice, spiritual mind treatment, whatever it takes to take responsibility for what is going on and shift that internality that needs shifting to get the results we want externally, right? We shift the internal, we get the results we want externally, or at least we start creating the progress towards it. If progress has stopped and grinded to a halt around you, notice if you are blaming yourself or anyone else, because it only stops in the blame. It never stops in the responsible. Because when we are responsible, the next step to take shows itself, and we take that step. You can take the external actions to reach your goals, whatever those goals are, peace, joy, quiet, or a loud outlandishness that is full of life, whatever it is for you, whatever your deepest desire is, it can only happen, again, from first taking 100% responsibility. Here's a treatment by Dr. Ernest Holmes. I am filled with the consciousness of right action. Right action is success in all that I undertake to do. I am successful in all my undertakings, and I am compensated for all my efforts. I am surrounded by substance, which is always taking the form of supply and always manifesting itself to me in the form of whatever my need may be at the time. All good is now mine and is now manifest in my experience. There is that in me which all people recognize as worthwhile and desirable, and everyone whom I meet loves this self of mine and recognizes its worth. I have abundance because I am abundance. Now, this is claiming what is rightfully yours. You are abundant, not just having abundance. You don't just have health, you are health. The essence of the divine is you. It's not just within you, it is you. The two most powerful words in the English language are I am. What do you say after those words about yourself? What do you say in being responsible for the creation and generation of your life? I know lots of people who, when they have symptoms of illness, say, I am sick. And once you say, I am sick, you are. Like Henry Ford said, whether you think you are or you think you're not, you're right. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And so what are you believing about yourself? What are you saying about yourself with I am? And don't think you can just say it and it has meaning here but doesn't have meaning there. Where however you use it, whenever you say it, you need to be vigilant about those two words because they are the most powerful words in the English language. I am. I am a magnificent, powerful, creative, spiritual being, and my life works magnificently. That's what you want to be saying to yourself. I have not used the words I am sick for over 10 years. And for these last 10 years, I have rarely shown any symptoms of being sick. Every once in a while, I have a little sniffles or I have a little this, but it passes incredibly quickly from all around me. I have these 2 kids in my life now who are sick a lot and call themselves sick a lot. But I don't, and I don't take it on. And don't you take it on either. Whatever is going on in your life, if you want to share what the experience is, the symptoms are, but do not use the words I am around that, except when you're talking about health, when you're talking about wellness, when you're talking about prosperity. I am fits very well there and feeds the person you want to be in the world and feeds the dream you want to create out of life. Dr. Holmes again, there is one infinite spirit, and every time a person says, I am, that person proclaims it. There is one infinite substance, and every time we move in it. There is one infinite law, and every time we think, we set this law in motion. So what are you setting in motion with the words I am? What responsibility are you taking that you can direct this powerful force in your life? Take a good look. Stay vigilant. Catch yourself when your thoughts are saying going astray and saying anything that isn't what you want to create in your life. Stop blaming yourself or anyone else. Even if you are positive it is your fault or their fault, start taking on the knowing and responsibility that you generate your life and whatever is going on in it. If you don't like it, you can still change it by being responsible. You have the power to change whatever it is to the life of your dreams. Thank you. I love you.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God.